Good morning. This is Straight Talk. I am Dina Ventura.
I'm Vernon Velasco.
Good morning.
Yeah.
Our guest for today is the Ambassador of Israel to the Philippines, Mr. Rafael Harpaz.
Good morning po.
Good morning, Ambassador.
Good morning to all of you.
How are you today? Something's happening in Israel right now as we speak.
Israel is being under attack by a Hamas terrorist group in the last few hours. Just imagine hundreds of rockets are falling on towns, on kibbutzim, on small villages in Israel against innocent civilians from this terrorist group, which is sponsored by Iran. It's true there was tension in the last few days around Jerusalem, but it didn't reach, and you see the photos now, it's very, very clear. Israel has the right to self-defense. No other country will accept this situation. It's an ongoing issue since Israel left Gaza till the last centimeter in 2006. And we just hope for peace and quiet, but we need to protect ourselves. No schools today in most of Israel. Maybe we beat COVID, but we still have challenges in our country dealing with terrorists. And we expect countries all over the world to support us in this self-defense. Terrorism is not just an Israeli problem; it's a global problem. But this is something unacceptable, and there's not other country in the world which agree to be in these circumstances.
Yes.
And thank you for so many support we receive from all over the world. It's a challenge. Israel, since our existence 73 years ago, we were always surrounded by enemies that want to distract us. The goal is to distract Israel. They say it very clearly. But we are strong. We are a strong country. We are here to stay. And we shall overcome also this tough period. We'll have to see how things will develop in the coming days. But we need to protect ourselves as every other country in the world would do.
Yes, Ambassador. Our prayers are with you and your countrymen.
Whom do you tag as the hostile group behind this attack?
It's mainly it's the extremist Palestinian terrorist group headed by Hamas. As they say, their goal is the destruction of Israel. It's not a territorial dispute or whatever. And they initiate this attack of rockets on Israel was initiated tonight. In the first hour, 150 rockets were shot on Israel. Which other country in the world has to face such a challenge? But we know to protect ourselves, and we will do whatever necessary to fight terrorism, as other countries like the Philippines are doing.
Yes, one thing about Israel is that you are known to act fast on any situation. And your retaliation just came after they attacked you.
We need to be vigilant. We need to be strong. I think this is the most important thing. And Israel is a strong country, but we have not all our neighbors are such friendly to us. And we're speaking about a non-state player, a terrorist group. Like you were facing in Marawi and other places, and places in Africa. It's all over the world. But we will do whatever necessary with our right for self-defense.
Yes.
Let's veer into the vaccine effort of Israel. You are actually having a slowdown in infection already, but you're not totally COVID-free. Why share your vaccines with us? Why are we so high on the list? Even though there are some legal issues hampering, you're sharing your vaccines to the Philippines.
First, I'm very proud that Israel is the most vaccinated country in the world. Actually, you don't need masks outside in Israel. Life is really normal. Schools are back. There is now a discussion whether to have to lift the ban on masks inside the offices or whatever. We have learned lessons with this virus is ups and downs. But the fact that we got the vaccines, the fact that we have such a very good public health system, I think this is the key for the success. You see the numbers going down, and those that are still sick is people that from their own reasons decided not to be vaccinated, or those that are children that can't be vaccinated because of age. This is very important. So we needed to deal with fake news from the beginning, and the Prime Minister was the first one to be vaccinated, President was the second one. The vaccines that Israel is giving to its citizens, it's only Pfizer. We have also Moderna, and we are waiting, and I saw that the FDA has approved vaccination of children from the ages of 12 to 15, so I think Israel will move now to this stage to start vaccinating this group of people. What we have seen that the vaccines are saving lives. The number of deaths went down dramatically. When it comes to giving vaccines to third countries, we have legal limitations with the agreements that we have with the with the pharmaceutical companies and other legal issues. When this is going to be solved, definitely when it comes to this region, the Philippines will be high on the list. I'm proud that during COVID, we were willing until now to assist the Philippines. I'm so proud that we vaccinated approximately 30,000 Filipinos, caregivers, OFWs in Israel. We vaccinated the TESTA. We have hundreds of TESTA students in Israel. We vaccinated all the team of the Filipino embassy in Israel. And when it comes to the Philippines, first, with the task force, we are sharing our experience and how to deal with the COVID, how to prevent it. We have a very close contact with Secretary Galvez, Secretary Duque and their teams about it. And also we were able to submit assistance to the Philippines, whether it's the equipment for distance learning for the Department of Education, protective equipment for the PNP and the Department of National Defense. And Philippines is a very friendly country, so there were no questions that we will be if for you here in this tough, challenging days for you. I'm encouraged to see that actually the numbers are going down in the Philippines, and I hope you will be soon out of this crisis very soon. But we have to be cautious. Also, Israel, we saw those ups and downs, so that's why we are staying very vigilant. We have all those variants that we need to deal with them also.
Yes, we're very grateful for all the help that Israel has been extending to the Philippines.
Yeah.
But Ambassador, let's backtrack a little bit and go back to the time when the pandemic hit last year. How did your embassy cope with the situation? What were the immediate actions that you took?
Yeah.
It was very, very challenging. First, our main mission at the beginning, when everything started around March last year, is to assist the couple of thousands of Israeli tourists that were in the Philippines and wanted to go back home. Now, the challenge is not to take them out from Manila, but they were Israelis, they love the fish, so they go to all the remote islands. So that was quite an operation. We got a lot of assistance from the LGUs and from the Filipino government to bring them to Manila. But it took us several months. Actually, some of them prefer to stay and they're still here, but that was the main concern for us at the first few months. And then to bring assistance to the Philippines. The embassy continued to function. All this time, we never closed them. Even in the strictest lockdown, we were functioning. And I can say, for example, Filipino OFWs, caregivers, they continue to go until today, almost all the time, continue to come and go to Israel. And by the way, being vaccinated when they come. So our hands are full. Now we work almost very normally, more like cautiousness, because most of my Israeli team are already vaccinated, which is very important. And we hope that the Filipinos will be vaccinated very, very soon. We have a very strict protocol of social distance, of working in capsules. We learned from our experience that we need to stay vigilant. But I'm happy we never stopped working. That was the most important. Israeli flag was always up here in the Philippines when we did.
I was wondering, Ambassador, we have been hearing this on the media. What is the difference in your own terms of vaccine nationalism and vaccine diplomacy po? Yeah.
Well, we don't. As you know, until now we didn't give a vaccine. I hear about it. Well, for Israel, we don't do this. We want to first. There is a lot of pride in Israel, really, about our achievement. Being, we are there 195 countries in the world, and Israel is number one when it comes to vaccines. There's national pride, especially on our healthcare system. And I think we are some kind of a role model for the world, like some kind of laboratory to see actually if the vaccine, when we started the campaign, just don't forget, nobody knew how efficient are the vaccines. It was some kind of taking a risk.
Yes.
Now, after that 5.5 million Israelis are vaccinated, we can tell you that Pfizer protects those people in 96%.
Yeah.
96% won't even receive it. Then those that will receive it will get the vaccine, will get the virus, despite the fact that they are vaccinated. Most of them will be mildly sick, like a small flu or whatever. So the vaccine, which is a major achievement of the science, is working. And when we will be able to give vaccines, as I mentioned, we will give it to those countries that are friendly with us. And at need, as we did always. I remember taking you back when the Philippines had Typhoon Yolanda in 2013. We are far away. Israel it's not our neighborhood here. We did our second biggest relief operation. The history was done in Leyte. So that's who we are. But also I should thank the Philippines. We have 30,000 Filipinos caregivers in Israel. The population that was the most vulnerable during COVID are the elderly people. Who takes care of the elderly people? The Filipinos. and they are doing an amazing job. So we are thankful to them, thankful for what they did, because parents can see their children and grandchildren during this period. And the ones that took care of them are the Filipinos, and they are still going to, and more going to. And we never, I know that many Filipinos or OFWs return to the Philippines in hundreds of times, but not from Israel. Israel, the numbers stayed, and actually I see that they are starting to grow again.
Very good. But Ambassador, before you got to the point when majority of your population became vaccinated, how did you get there? What were the challenges that you encountered along the way? What did you have to?
There were a few challenges. First, when it comes to was the challenge of fake news, which everybody are facing, and also those that you have people that are opposing vaccinations. It's not fake news. They just say they don't believe in vaccinations. It has, every country has it.
Yes.
The way we dealt with this challenge was a government campaign. And first and foremost, a role model by our leaders, being the first to be vaccinated. And then when the results of, after we have a significant amount of our population being vaccinated, so it was easier to persuade people to be vaccinated. So I think that was the major challenge. Then there was challenge when it comes to the economy, like the Philippines and others, to find the right balance between the economy and the public health, public security of the people. We had a very tough lockdown. Many people became unemployed, and then we found the right balance. And now we see that now the Israeli economy is moving forward very, very fast. So that was a major challenge. The government needed to open its pockets to assist those that they need. Especially the problem was the private sector, those small businesses that were shut down during the lockdown. It's still a challenge. So those were the major issues, in addition to just receiving the vaccines. But I think Pfizer saw that Israel really could be. We are not, we're only 9.3 million, so we are not too big. We have a very amazing health system. So I think it was a good pick for them. And I will just add to that, I don't know if you're aware, 2 weeks ago, Israel signed an additional agreement with both Pfizer and Moderna. These are the only vaccines which are approved by Israel until now, for another 16 million doses for 2022. Now you will ask, Israel has already enough vaccines for its population now.
Yes.
Well, we are looking for the third dose, a potential of a booster, a third dose that will cover the variants. So we already guaranteed that in 2022, assuming we will need a third dose, Israel will have it. So we have this midterm planning.
Yeah. Ambassador, you said that your health system is very robust. It's very easy to persuade your population to be inoculated. But here in the Philippines, Filipinos are quite, reluctant. I mean, some of them, most of them, are very reluctant. What do you think would be the best way to actually boost confidence among Filipinos?
I'm not here to give advice to the Filipino government, but I tell you from the Israeli experience, and the challenge was at the beginning. Many people, including the people which are normative, were very cautious because you give a vaccine and you don't know, what will be the outcome. I can tell you that in Israel, hardly no significant side effects. People are concerned about side effects. So Israeli policy is first, go and be vaccinated. Second, complete the process because you need, assuming you get 2 shots, in Israel, at least Pfizer, you get the first shot, after 21 days, the second shot, and it takes a week until you get the efficiency of approximately 95-96%. So complete the process. Keep social distance and be careful also after you have received the 2 shots.
Yes.
So this is the main issue to it, and actually hardly no side effects. Small pain here in the shoulder, a day or 2 of maybe some people had fever. No drama. It's an amazing achievement of the science and the companies that develop it. And it was the process was there were days in Israel that we vaccinated 200,000 people. 200,000, small Israel, 200,000 people.
Yeah.
Now I can tell you there are Filipinos that go as OFWs or Israelis which are living here and going with their spouses to Israel. They land and immediately they get the vaccine. They got the vaccine. Also, we need to conduct a very flexible quarantine policy. And in Israel, for example, if you are not traveling to do covering a story about Israel, you will be, if you are vaccinated by Pfizer or by Moderna, in Israel that you're vaccinated, you won't need a quarantine at all. You would just have to do a PCR test before. If you are clear, go to work, because it costs money to give people to lose working days. If you are not vaccinated, you will be quarantined for 9 days. At the 9th day, you will do a test. If you're a negative, on the 10th day you are out. I know that every country have different policies. Some countries have 21 days quarantine. Some countries 14 days. For us, also, we try to measure the risks, and it's easy to lock the country completely, but then what will happen to the economy? So this is the balance that we need to play, and I think we played pretty well until now.
Yes, I think we all have a lot to learn from the way Israel did the vaccination program. And when we come back after a short break, we'd like to hear from the ambassador how they did it. If you could give us a walkthrough on how Israel did it. But we'll be back after a short break.
Hatch something big. The all-new Honda City hatchback with 4 seating modes. Utility mode, long mode, tall mode, refresh mode. The all-new City hatchback. Hatch more life.
Viber is the free and secure way to connect with friends and family, anywhere. Send messages and make phone and video calls for free. Download Viber now.
You are watching Straight Talk with Ambassador of Israel, Rafael Harpaz. Hello po, Mr. Ambassador.
Hello again.
Can we go back a little bit to when it all began? What exceptionally went well? We know that Israel is a very small country. You have a very resilient health system, and your policies in the government are beyond par. So if you are to give your 2 cents on the Filipinos powers that be, what can it be? I mean, we've actually imposed lockdown very early on, and then, eased it a little when everything went well, and then now we're actually everything's blowing on our faces now.
Back. We keep going in circles.
There are no rules here, but we have also, by the way, the same. We have one lockdown and a second lockdown and a third lockdown, and we learn the lessons. So there is no formula for this. I can tell you what was definitely a weak spot for us was how we are managing our airport. That was a weak spot because Israelis are traveling, and actually during COVID, people were traveling and coming back, and that's how we saw viruses came. And now we have a system that is working, that you are tested at the airport, and it's done very, very well. The challenge first was to get the vaccines. I think Israel was willing to be, many countries, by the way, some countries are still hesitating, I see in Europe and others, we got the vaccines. I think that was the major issue. Second was persuading the population that it will help them. And then third, managing all this financial crisis, which was really, really, really tough. The financial crisis, and especially the issue of the elderly people, and it took us a while to understand that they are the most vulnerable. You see, those that are being now, the New York City cases that we have, it's young people. It's young people. So the elderly people are vaccinated. So I think there are a lot of lessons to learn, and I don't think that it's over. We might need to live with this virus in certain forms in the future. Getting the vaccines, vaccinated the population. I think if this discussion will take place 6 months from now, so I think that all of us will be in a new stage of a much new normal. But what we have learned that we can't lock down the country completely. Just people will die from other things. And I see now when Israel is recovering, you see the economic figures. We are moving very fast. Economic growth will be around 6%. The revenues from taxes already high. It's an indication that the economy is moving. But still there's those among unemployed people. Now it went down to around 8% in Israel. It almost reaches 35-40%, but there are still those that will want to go back to their jobs. And this is a challenge, how to bring them back to the working force. It's a challenge for the countries. And you can't compare Philippines with 110 million people, a big country, island country, or small Israel. We are smaller than Metro Manila, so this is not the issue. Another thing that we have learned, a very important lesson, is the education system and distance learning. This is very, very important because pupils as children were staying home for such a long time. It's a burden, psychological burden on them. It's a burden on their parents. They are not studying, so what happened to this generation? And it took us a while that we need to create conditions for capsule learning. So one day you're in school, one day you learn by Zoom. Israel has the technology. Most, not all, but most young Israelis, they have a personal computer at home and a very good internet connection. Another challenge was us, the working force. We have learned that we can work from distance. We can, in normal days, I would be with you at prepare and we do this interview face to face. So many things that we have learned is that we can do it from a distance. And actually, we are trying to implement it now when the government is now back to work almost fully. One day a week, you are eligible if you have a computer and you get to work from home in order to reduce traffic and air pollution and congestion and to give you more time with the family. We see how it's going to work out. I hope that our memory won't be that short that when we are out for this pandemic, we'll forget all those things. But the most important lesson, at least at Israel, we need to take is that we need to strengthen our health system, our hospitals, our doctors, our nurses. They stood fine with dealing with this terrible pandemic and the burden of them. The Israeli health system didn't collapse. But we were close. There were moments they not collapse, but the pressure was very, very high, and we need to strengthen them. And this is something that the government has to think about, allocating more budgets, more resources, more manpower on a daily routine for after the pandemic.
Ambassador, you said you're very, very bullish on your economy, slowly gaining foothold. What is your status on the foreign direct investment in the Philippines?
Well, first, actually, Israel is moving fast when it comes to economy. When it comes to Israeli private sector is eager to return to the Philippines. By the way, not just Israeli, the Israeli tourists, PAL has announced last week, we knew it, that they will start flying direct to Tel Aviv, Manila, Tel Aviv, on October 2nd, I think, at the beginning of October. Israelis are eager to come. The private sector is eager to come. The investors are eager to come. There is issues how long quarantine they will be because they are all vaccinated, all the Israelis that will come here, but they are eager to come. We see a great potential in the Philippines. The best indication is that during COVID, most embassies in the world either shut their doors or squeezed. And we are only here in Manila. We opened our economic and commercial mission for the first time in the history last September. We opened our defense attaché office here last August. We opened an honorary consulate in Mindanao based in Davao City. It's an indication that Israel strategically in the Philippines. We are discussing both a bilateral promotion of investments agreement. We discussed both having agreements on cooperation on science, on technology, on environmental issues, beside the usual relations that are very, very good. Direct flights will be very important because and walang visa for Filipinos, so that will bring tourism, that will bring investors, people-to-people relations in both directions.
Okay.
That's Manila to Tel Aviv.
Yes, I
it's
think
via the flag carrier. So
yes.
Go ahead.
I think a lot of people are really eager to get things back to normal so people can travel and businesses can open. But right now in the Philippines, as I'm sure you also are aware of, Ambassador, it's still going a little bit slow in terms of the vaccine rollout. So it has affected businesses and livelihoods for a lot of people. What are your suggestions based on your observations about the way things are going in the Philippines?
Yeah, I can tell you again, I'm not in a position to give advice to the Philippines. I tell you what is the Israeli experience. Okay. There were three main sectors that were hit badly. It's the entertainment, it's the tourism, and it's the food industry. These are the areas that were hit most badly in Israel, and they are the ones that the recovery will take longer. So I can tell you that I see, at least now in Metro Manila, that at least the food industry is back, not completely, but it's back.
Yes.
And I see the restaurants and coffee shops are pretty full. Tourism, I saw that they have the new initiative of point to point, and that's what Israel do, because the hotels were shut down. You know, we hardly have tourists in Israel. And the entertainment is a challenge. Now in Israel, it's back. Now, just this month, a rock concert, whatever, but here there is a condition. Who can go to a rock concert? Who can attend a basketball game? Only those that have what we call the green badge, that is a proof that you are being vaccinated. So there are incentives for those that are vaccinated. And if you are not vaccinated, you have to do a COVID test, which is costly and takes time, that you can enter to certain events. Also, with certain countries, we agreed on have what we call a mutual green passport agreement, which we are recognizing both vaccines of both countries, and then tourists can slowly visiting each other. Greece is a good example of this, and some other countries that we have this agreement. We also proposed to the Philippines to discuss such an arrangement between them. And the European countries are now actually Israelis that are vaccinated can enter most of the European Union countries now. So these are the things that I think will enable us to bring those Israeli tourists back here, Filipino tourists back to Israel, and also that the business community can return. I think that these are the key factors. Again, stay vigilant, stay alert, because you don't know how this vaccine will behave at the end of the day.
That's right.
Yeah, Ambassador, we're actually very happy that you're slowly opening your borders, so that, the Philippines to Tel Aviv is actually open now. But can you tell us about, during the last Lent, regarding the e-wailing wall, you actually sent thousands of e-notes from Filipinos to basically to the wailing wall. So can you tell us about that?
Yeah, first, it's amazing how much love Israel gets here among Filipinos. I was born in Jerusalem. And when I tell people that that's my hometown, they think, some people want to touch me. I was honored to be the official escort of President Duterte when he has visited Israel for the first time as a president office in September 2018. And he stayed all his visit. He was in Jerusalem. He could see the old city of Jerusalem from the window of his suite in the King David Hotel in Jerusalem. I know that for every Filipinos, visiting the Holy Land is in his bucket list. And I invite all of you, including both of you, when COVID is over, without visa, and you will have probably direct flight of PAL, go to Israel. In 2019, we had 35,000 Filipino tourists traveling to Israel, despite the fact that we didn't have direct flight. And you have to add to this the 30,000 OFWs, which are in Israel, Filipinos, which are like ambassadors of goodwill, because Israel takes very good care of the Filipinos in Israel. They are part of our families. They are our working conditions, pensions, payments are regulated, and they are taking care of our most beloved people, our parents and grandparents, and they are part of our families. I always say that you can eat balut in Tel Aviv and alu halu in Jerusalem. You feel like home. So I invite you to visit the Holy Land when things will calm down now, especially, and then when COVID will calm down, and then things will get better. I'm sure. Also here, I'm pretty optimistic.
Ambassador, let me cut you off a bit. I mean, just to digress a bit. What is your stance? I know you're not actually dipping your toes. You're not inclined to dip your toes on this tensions of something that's not really on your purview. What is your stance if you were to take against on the Philippines' relations with China?
Well, the only thing I can tell you about the issue of West Philippine Sea, South China Sea, is that we are following very closely the situation, and based on our experience from the Middle East, we believe and we support a peaceful solution. This is the way. That's what I have to say.
That's very diplomatic. You have questions?
Okay, so speaking of diplomacy again, Ambassador, what are the current collaborations between Israel and the Philippines when it comes to the vaccination program? Pandemic actions.
Only on the vaccination or general? Because our relations are
pandemic.
The partnerships.
Pandemic. So I think there are a few segments here. First is the ongoing, and we hope to have soon a delegation that will come here to share our experience of experts. But sharing our know-how, I think it's very important for you and for us.
Yes.
How we are dealing with this, how you are dealing with this, we do it with our departments of health, and it's working well. We gave so many batches of assistance to the Philippines, and we are looking if there will be a need more, we will do so. And every Filipino that comes to Israel will be vaccinated by Pfizer, and especially the OFWs. And again, I want to thank the OFWs, because you have to understand what does it mean for us. When you say Filipino in Israel, it's a term for good people, good service. It's a brand.
Wow.
We have OFWs from other countries, but Filipinos are the ones that this is in Israel. It's a brand, and you say Filipinos. So it's a blessing. It's a blessing, and we also learning a lot from your experience, because it's a big country, and we will continue to cooperate. So we have this a topic that wasn't a major cooperation on the health systems, wasn't a major issue until the COVID, because. But now it became one of the important segments of our discussions with you, and it's part of our new diplomacy is to deal with, like we deal with environment, you deal with air pollution, you deal with economy, with energy, also with health issues. And I think we should, you can't deal with it by yourself. You need to have international cooperation on those issues, especially when the virus has no borders. Don't forget, no borders, and that's why it's so important.
Yeah. You said, Ambassador, that the Filipinos are very generous. Now, much obliged, you're generous, to thank you for your generosity as well. So can you be very specific about, what's next in the pipeline about the Philippines-Israeli cooperation in other fronts?
Well, I can tell you there are so many things, but one thing that was delayed because of COVID, Israel, we have a very conservative OFW policy, only what we need, then we signed an agreement. Right before COVID, we realized that we need OFWs for our tourism industry. We never had it. And the first country in the world that we have signed an agreement to bring OFWs was the Philippines. That the goal was to bring up to 2,000 Filipinos to work at the hotel industry in Israel. They were due to leave on April 2020. April 2020. It's good that it wasn't before, because all the hotels were shut down. But hopefully, and this is the first country, and why the Philippines was the first country in the world that Israel will sanction it? Because we have great experience with Filipinos, OFWs, caregivers, and that's why I hope when the tourism industry in Israel will go back full-fledged, then definitely we'll come back to this issue. For the time being, the tourists are internal Israeli tourists. So this is one area of cooperation where a lot is discussing on economy, on business, on investment. I spoke about an investment agreement, on mutual mixed economic committee, flights, tourism, big issue, energy. One of the biggest Israeli energy companies is a project of searching oil and gas in the Sulu Sea, and I know how important it is for the Filipinos to become self-sufficient when it comes to energy. Agriculture, irrigation, big issues. We are training. Now we do it by webinars, by Zoom. Thousands of Filipinos on irrigation, on agriculture, on gender issues. There is a huge project that discussed between the two governments of having a solar energy irrigation process that will enable you to use the solar energy to irrigate the rice fields and to receive actually at least 2 cycles of rice in most of the country. So our hands are full, and the relations are very, very good, and it's just a blessing. I just hope things will go totally normal, that people can commute between the two countries, because that's what we are missing, is the commuting. It's done today, but it's tough.
Yes.
Thank you for the kind words, Ambassador. I know you were very profuse with your thanks with the Filipinos, but can you, as a parting word, what's your message for the Filipinos here and abroad?
First, I have so many Filipino friends, and you feel at home when you're in Israeli. In the Philippines, Filipino people are like Israelis. There are 2 things which are common. First, they're so friendly, invite you to their homes to eat with them, and then the base, the heart of the Filipinos is the family, and the heart of the Israeli society is the family. So I find a lot of common common issues. And I see how resilient are the Philippines dealing with this COVID. And I just strengthen them, all of you. And when the vaccines will come, get the vaccines. It can save lives. And I'm sure that all of us together will succeed going out of this crisis, hopefully in the very near future.
Very nice to hear.
Yeah. Mr.
Before
Ambassador.
we really say goodbye to the ambassador, we'll just pause for a short break.
Thank you.
And we are back on Straight Talk. I'm Dina Ventura.
I'm Vernon Velasco.
And we are with Israel Ambassador Rafael Harpaz.
No.
Well, thank you very much, sir, for sharing with us your experience and knowledge on the vaccines and the pandemic. But before we end the show, we'd like to ask a little something about you.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about your stint here in the Philippines as the ambassador for Israel.
Well, you have a beautiful country. I've been visiting all the parts. I've been just last month. I've been to the Cordillera region, to the mountain region. If you go to, I went to see Banawi because Israelis in normal days are the number 2 tourists in Banawi, and I met so many people that speak Hebrew. I've been to Mindanao, to the islands. It's a blessing to be here, and I see the photos of me dancing with Filipinos. So what can I tell you? And I just hope that we will go back to normal, and then, but the both of you and all the rest of the Filipinos which are watching us now can travel to Israel after COVID, and that the Israelis will come here. And I fall in love with this country and with the people. It's very easy to fall in love, and I just wish all of us that we'll have a better future.
Yeah. We know, Ambassador, that you actually are leading a very jet-set lifestyle. But can you say that you have sort of become a local to the Philippines?
Kontilan. Kontilan.
Okay.
Always I use the same, I came here, they told me it's Dahan, and now it's Bilis. But yes, and ambassador and a diplomat should be acquainted to the local culture, to the local people. And here it's easy because the Filipinos are opening their hearts and minds to foreigners. So immediately, and I have so many good friends here. And it's just a blessing, really. You learn, you meet the people, you know a lot about the country and about the challenges and the advantages. So it's just wonderful experience.
On that note, what is your favorite Filipino food? And are you torn between adobo and sinigang?
Yeah. So halo definitely. I was introduced to halo I think in my first week in the Philippines, and that's my favorite dessert, chicken adobo for sure. And we love to drink buko juice, which is amazing. They say it's also health, so very healthy. It's the best coconuts that I had in my lifetime was in this country by far.
Have you tried the mangoes?
Mangoes,
yeah. Mango, pineapple. But why I say buko? Because mango you can find in Israel, but buko like you have in the Philippines, I haven't seen it in any other. And I've been to tropical countries, I haven't seen something like this. So every time I travel outside Manila, just immediately I'm looking where's the best one.
Ambassador, what is it with the we have actually been hearing this from foreigners from every which way. What is it about the Filipino smile that makes you fall in love, especially with Filipino women?
Well, I'm only in love with my wife. This but I think you ask, it takes me back to the Filipinos in Israel. Why Israelis love so much the Filipinos? Why they appreciate them? Because you have this kindness,
warmth,
and gentle, which is that's what Israelis like. You touch people. You are not. There's not too much formalities. You're open. You're friendly. You touch. You hug. This is like us, like the Israelis. I find a lot of these common things, and we have actually. A lot of mixed marriages, the Filipinos and Israelis, both here and in Israel. So I see it all over. We have Filipinos that became Israelis and going to the Israeli army, and we have Israelis that are living here in the islands and with their Filipino families, and it's wonderful. This is the new world, with globalization. It's part of it.
Mr. Ambassador, it has been a delight, and again, our hearts go out to Israel for the recent one.
Our prayers are with you and your country.
Thank you, and please go to Israel when the COVID is over. It will be the best thing for you, for both of you.
Best place to be.
We look forward to having buko with you in person, Ambassador.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah, Ambassador Rafael Harpaz of Israel Embassy. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye. Thank you all.
This has been Dina Ventura.
And I am Vernon Velasco. This is Straight Talk. Good day.
Good morning.